The very next day was my wife's surprise birthday party. I was excited because I actually succeeded at planning a surprise party for her. She said she never had one because she always accidentally discovered the plans for it. I guess the last time her parents tried to throw her one was when she was 16. She was turning 27 now and I was 25. I stayed at home with our 4-year-old son while she went to work. I was out running errands for birthday party supplies when I drove through her work parking lot to find her car. My plan was to leave a rose and a romantic note on it, giving her instructions to meet me at a specific address at a specific time tomorrow. Of course, she was going to come home to me after work and ask me about the note, but it was the spontaneous surprise I aimed for. I circled the parking lot quite a bit before I caught a glimpse of her car in the very corner of the parking lot on the back side of the building. I got close enough to it to see movement inside, which was very weird, so I parked my car as close as I could to hers and zoomed in on my phone's camera. I started recording the movement in the car and caught multiple glimpses of her, topless with another man. I couldn't believe she was doing this. They were having sex in the company parking lot. I looked around for any security cameras and noticed they were all just out of range from my wife's car. She parked there intentionally. How many times had she done this? I felt like I was going insane, but our son was with me in the back seat of my car. I had to play it cool, stay strong, and go home to come up with a plan. At home, I typed out a text to the surprise party guest list. This guest list included all of our friends and family, surprisingly, none of my wife's co-workers. She probably intended to keep family life separate from work life for a reason. The text explained that I discovered only today, the day before the party, that my wife was having an affair. The party would go on, but instead of yelling surprise, we would yell something else. Instead of the other activities I had planned, we would do something else. Everyone was very sympathetic to me and agreed to do as I said. Even my wife's mom called me to apologize on her daughter's behalf and say I didn't deserve this betrayal and pain. I broke down crying on the phone with her. When my wife arrived home, I pretended everything was fine. It was really hard to do, but I knew tomorrow was going to be everything I needed it to be. The next morning, I spoke to my lawyer and picked up divorce papers. Then I arranged with the venue to be able to use their video projector. I went back to my wife's work and put the note on her car, without the rose. She didn't deserve a rose. Then I got back home and waited. As anxious and sad as I was, I knew the end of my marriage was not the end of the world, especially if she was the cheater she proved herself to be. My wife confirmed she got the note by texting me. I took our son to my mom's house and gave him a hug. The worst thing about divorce was the impact it would have on him. When I arrived at the venue, guests were arriving and apologizing to me. They'd assured me they would do anything to help support me through this heartbreak. We got everything set up so it would be one hell of a show. When my wife walked in, the lights went out and we held our breath. As soon as she walked in, the lights came on and everyone jumped out, yelling, "Hey, cheater." I allowed a few moments of awkward silence while my wife's brain processed that everyone just called her a cheater. She looked offended, scared, and confused. Then I pushed play on the projector. It showed the video of her car rocking back and forth, with glimpses of her topless self. Her jaw dropped and she covered her mouth with her hands. She looked around the room, noticing all her friends and family staring at her in disapproval. The guests decided to leave now, and I thought it was a good time too. I left my wife there. I got home 40 minutes before her. I stole her house key earlier that morning so she wouldn't be able to get in. All of her stuff was on the front porch. She arrived home only to be shocked all over again. She broke down crying again. I spoke to her from the second-story window, telling her she had to get her stuff and leave because she wasn't my wife anymore. She just flipped me off while she cried and called someone. 10 minutes later, it looked like the man she cheated with was helping her take her stuff somewhere, to his house maybe. I knew who my wife's boss was, so I emailed him the video I caught. The next morning, I got a reply. He was able to use security cameras to identify who walked to and from the car with my wife, and they would both be fired immediately. Of course, it didn't take long before my wife called me. She cussed me out and called me names, but that didn't bother me. I knew she was going to realize just how badly she messed up. All through the time of the divorce and afterward, she begged and pleaded with me to stop changing our lives. Eventually, I stopped responding to her because she knew she did this to us. I haven't heard from her in a while. My main focus will always be my son. I have hope that I'll find a good woman for me and a good mother figure for him. Wow, OP, that is a terrible thing to go through. You went to your wife's job to surprise her, only to find a very disturbing secret. She was not considering anyone or anything but herself when she chose to cheat on you. Being human, we face temptation nearly every day. The wisest of us all can resist that temptation every time and stay focused on the people that matter most. It isn't very hard to think about the consequences of your actions before making a decision, and never assume that a secret will stay a secret. I have hope that you'll find a woman capable of honest communication and selflessness. OP, you made very wise decisions and used self-control in a situation where most people would have freaked out. I wish you the best of luck in life going forward. Now, let's get into today's second story. My wife didn't usually go out to lunch with friends. I would have supported it, but she was a little socially awkward, so most of her friends were online. She had one best friend that we both knew well, named Lee. She'd see her as often as possible, but she lived 45 minutes away. We had an open phone and computer policy between us, but my wife was such a sweet little angel, I never felt the need to check either. She was on it a lot, but usually still interactive with me and made it clear that giving me her attention and time was a priority. That started to change when she stayed in the bathroom longer, sometimes even locking the door, and seemed irritated if I asked for anything while she was absorbed in one of her electronic devices. Well, I became officially suspicious when she asked me if she could go out to lunch with a new female friend. She even went so far as to show me the messages between them, but only a few about meeting up. Sure, her name was programmed as a girl's name, but how did I know who it really was? How did my wife even know who it really was? I asked her to call this girl so I could say hi, but she said she couldn't right then because she was at work. She assured me they talked on the phone lots of times when I was at work. That was a little more unnerving than comforting. When the day came for her to meet this girl for lunch, my wife became even more insistent that she was going and I needed to trust her. After she left in her little old car, I got into mine and followed her using our family location app, but she turned it off after 13 minutes of driving. So she didn't want me to know where she was. That was disheartening. I drove up and down the street where she turned it off. It was full of restaurants and shopping. After looking for 8 minutes, I was about to give up because I felt like she could be spying on me at this point and I'd have no idea. But then I saw her car in the Applebee's parking lot. So I parked at a distance and wore my prop hat, sunglasses, and scarf into the restaurant. Before the hostess even greeted me, I saw them. My wife and Lee's live-in boyfriend. So that's why she didn't just lie and say she was meeting Lee. I couldn't believe it. She was seeing another man behind my back, and it was her best friend's boyfriend. Why the hell did she feel the need to do this? My heart was pounding, and I'm sure my face was red. When the hostess tried to seat me, I told her I wouldn't be staying after all. I snuck over to where I could get a good picture of them, then went back to my car. I waited, determined and eager to catch them in whatever they were doing. My wife got into Lee's boyfriend's car and I followed them at a distance to Lee's house. Her car wasn't in the driveway and my nauseating suspicions only grew. They went into the house, and I sat in the car wondering what I should do. My wife didn't make very much money, but her parents would send her pretty nice sums of money each month for various reasons. I decided if I caught her cheating on me, I would tell her parents. They had very high expectations for their daughter, which didn't involve her cheating or getting divorced. Then, I decided to go inside. The front door was locked, but it wasn't hard to find a spare key. Unlocking it was louder than I wanted it to be, and I heard a few movements as the door opened. I entered and closed it behind me, hoping they thought it was Lee returning home unexpectedly. The last noise I heard sounded like it came from the kitchen, so I slowly walked there, keeping my eyes peeled. When I got there, no one was there, but there was a door leading to the basement. I didn't open it, I just locked it. If they were in there, they'd be found eventually. I searched the rest of the house and didn't find them, so they were definitely stuck in the basement. I left the house, locking it and returning the key before driving home. Before I even got home, Lee called me. She said she just found my wife and her boyfriend in the basement together. I played dumb. She was in disbelief, and I could hear them all arguing and trying to explain things. I apologized to Lee, told her I was driving and asked her to call me back when she figured out what was going on. She called me back 1 hour later. She was crying as she explained that she took her boyfriend's phone from him and checked messages. There were messages spanning back 5 months between my wife and him, and it was clear that their relationship was much more than friends. They had sex as early as 4 months ago because that was the first time it was mentioned in text. They spoke about when Lee or I would go to work and how lonely they were. They complained they needed more attention and could handle more than one partner. I was furious. I apologized to Lee again for her having to go through this with me. I asked her to send me screenshots of what she had because these cheaters needed to be called out. Once I got them, I sent them to my wife's parents. I also posted them on Facebook, tagging my wife. Lee did the same, tagging her boyfriend. Social media exploded with hate comments towards them both. They were shunned. My wife called me 3 hours later because she still hadn't come home. I imagined because she had a feeling I knew what she was doing. She had a sad tone as she said sorry to me, asking what she could do to make this better. I told her there was nothing she could do. I already told her parents and planned on filing for divorce. She wailed and started crying when I told her that. Just then, her mother called her on the other line. She hung up on me to answer it. When she called me back, she was crying so hard I could barely understand her. It felt good to hear her suffering similar emotional torment to what she caused me. She tried to tell me that she didn't have anyone now, and I asked her how that was my problem. Then, she tried several different tactics to get me to take her back or show her a flicker of mercy. even going so far as to offer me a pass to have sex with another woman. I declined and told her I'd be able to have sex with anyone I wanted now because I was single. She tried to contact me every day throughout the divorce, but I ghosted her. I had proof that she cheated, so I kept my house and didn't have to pay her a dime in alimony. To wrap up my story, Lee and I have both become good friends after going through this, and I wanted to share this story in hopes of helping other people to cope with sudden change and unfaithfulness. Wow, OP, I'm so sorry your wife went behind your back like that. And with her best friend's boyfriend of all people. I believe you made very smart and slight decisions to find the truth and expose their secret. I'm also glad you were able to get evidence of what was happening to help your case in the divorce. I know you're going to be able to keep moving forward and have a good, satisfactory life. In all relationships, trust and communication are fundamentally important. Add selflessness and consideration for others to ensure a wonderful relationship. Thank you for sharing your story with our viewers. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened.